All right, welcome to A Growing Concern. A lot of people think the most important thing about this next election is the economy. Some people think it's the war. Some people think we need to impeach the creeps. And we're gonna hear a little bit about all those different reasons tonight because we have some guests. Some are running for office here in Oregon. Some are standing in for folks who couldn't make it tonight. So I'll just get into it real quick and introduce the folks. Later on in the program, we're going to have a little roll-in that Joe Anybody put together from a town hall that was done last Sunday, where people got a chance to speak up their mind about what they thought was important. But for now, we have immediately on my right Joe Walsh, also known as the Lone Vet. Then we have Candy next to him. And then next to him we have Kevin Keene, who has just recently taken the classes along with his wife, who's now on the camera, and here at PCM, and is learning to get into video as well as politics. So welcome all to the program.
Thank you.
So I'll just start with Joe, since he's close by and I can hold on to him here. You're running for the seat for Blumenauer.
Yes, I'm running in District 3. I'm running against Blumenauer, and the reason that I'm running, my platform is based on justice. Impeachment is a big part of it. Ending this war is a big part of it. Congressman Blumenauer has refused to sign on for impeachment. He has refused to stop the funding of the war. And also, he blew a really important trade deal called the Peru trade deal.
He voted for that.
He voted for it. People died on the streets of Lima. We begged him not to do that. He did it. I'm running. You have a choice this time on the left, a real progressive.
All right. Well, man, a few words, but you said it all. And I might add that it was a couple million Peruvians that protested in the streets in Peru against that trade deal.
During the conferences in Congress, there were about 3 million Peruvian poor farmers that actually demonstrated in the street saying to the United States, don't do this. We did it anyway. Our congressman voted for it and then bragged about it. Bragged about it. And people died.
And they'll continue to die.
And they will continue to die. There's 700 of them in prison right now. Poor farmers who are losing their farms. That's what our progressive Democrat did to us.
Well, I know there was like 1.4 or something like that million farmers in Mexico because of NAFTA. And we wonder why they're trying to get into our country. Well, because we took their farms away with our trade bills.
That's right. NAFTA was a disaster. CAFTA was a disaster. The only progressive Democrat in the state of Oregon to vote for against every one of these trade deals was DeFazio. And I give him a thumbs up. He voted against every one of them. Blumenauer is a traitor. He's a free trader, and he's going to continue to do this. And he says he's against the new one that's coming up called the Colombian trade deal, but we're not sure how he's going to vote until he actually votes, because we can't trust him.
I'm glad you mentioned Peter DeFazio, because there was folks a while back that were wanting Peter DeFazio to drop his seat and run for the Senate against Gordon Smith. And that's what Candy's doing, right?
That is what I'm doing.
All right. So why do you think you need to do this?
Well, first of all,
one of the many reasons.
Yeah, one of the many reasons. And first of all, my full name is Candy Neville. I'm running for U.S. Senate, and my primary reason, or the thing that got me into it in the first place, was the war. I'm strongly anti-war. And when I started the campaign in January, there was a debate in Pendleton, and well, first I was sick about going into the war in the first place, and then it would just get worse, 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 as it continues to do. And then I'd be distressed because I'd read in the news that wasn't the top issue, that it was the economy, or and so I decided that it wasn't the economy, stupid. It was the war that drains the economy and the lifeblood and everything else. And the war actually affects everything else. The reason I run, a lot of people are against the war, which makes me very pleased. I'm very happy about that. But to end the war takes more than being against it. Actually, Congress is full of people that are against the war. And so it takes a very relentless, purposeful, focused effort. It has to stay on the top burner. So far in my campaign, that's actually what I'm very proud of, is that I have brought that issue from third, fourth, fifth position, moving around on all the burners, to the top position. And if I get elected, it's my intention to keep that top position till it's over. I actually have some ideas on how to end it, but I want to say something about free trade. One of the things, if I look at the United States lately, I mean, I'm a person who was a kid in the 50s and 60s, and and my father was a prisoner of war from World War II. So I have a different sort of patriotism. It's not really a flag waving sort of thing. It's just kind of this. If you've been raised by somebody who had gone through that, you have a compassion for soldiers and a great concern for veterans, which I do. I would. One of the things I'd like to see actually as veterans come back, to have them immediately put into some sort of counseling session so that they can kind of ease back into society and not have to wait till they're crying out for help.
And then they can't get it.
And then can't get it. So it just needs to be part of the program. Their funding needs to not just be not cut, it needs to be increased, actually. But what I did want to say something about free trade was that, being from the olden days, I'm used to, in the United States, thinking that we can do things, and we're not always looking to old solutions. So if I look at North American free trade, I have this desire to turn it into North America fair trade. And I would like to see our country start to be proactive. And I don't want to see us going into trade agreements until we actually have a framework that we're proud of. And actually there's a lot of resources for that. AFL-CIO, when they were sending out things for endorsements, I'm reading this stuff, and I was so new and so unknown, I had no hope of an endorsement, but I got more and more impressed because it was a body of work that covered so many labor issues. I mean, insurance, it's just everything. And I thought, this is a fantastic resource. I would like to see the United States use that sort of a resource and other input too, and set up a really solid concept for trade agreements that keep labor strong in the United States, protect labor in other countries. You know, I'm impressed that there is a global market and that it's pretty much, you know, really it's kind of just there. But we're pioneers with it. We're either going to use it to exploit and harm, or we're going to use it to set some standards. And I'm hoping that we use it to set some standards, and that we don't make agreements until we have our standards set.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's what Joe's biggest complaint about Blumenauer is. He's bending with the wind, and he's not allowing labor and environmental standards to be set before these things are signed.
Well, and also, if you read in the news when these things come up, everything is like we're supposed to be reactive, like you know, like we're supposed to do even things like that out of fear. You know, there's always this little fear element in it. And in my life, I haven't found that to be a good motivator for me that I could really trust. You know, I'm really better off in my own life is if I'm looking ahead and thinking, how do I want things? I'm being sensible and sane and step by step going forward. So I hope we, you know, do address it that way.
Well, one of the things that happened during the Peru trade deal was that there were labor people arrested in Blumenauer's office. There were activists arrested. This is before the vote. And he still went ahead and did it. So what is the role of a representative? Does he represent the wishes of the people in his district? Or is he so arrogant that he says to the people of his district, I know more than you do? That's not what this game is about. It's supposed to be you send me to Congress, I carry your voice. And when I stop carrying your voice, you get rid of me. That's what the Founding Fathers gave us.
That's why you're sitting in the chair next to me. Exactly.
Yes.
We also have a going to be a contested seat in the, I don't know what district it is, it's over there across the river for Congressman Wu, and we have Mark, I'll let you pronounce his name.
Valechko.
Valechko. I butchered that badly. So, and you were standing in for Mark because I think he's working this evening.
That's right. He's he's not a self-made millionaire or something like this.
Oh, shame on him.
Yeah, he's not a paid politician or a millionaire, and unfortunately, it seems like that's what you need to be. And we've had enough of that. We've had enough of professional lawyers and millionaires running the game. It's time that we take it back to we the people, for the people, by the people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the three of us represent. Mark, just a little background on Mark Valechko. He, I think like many of us, probably for the past 7 years, biting your nails, grinding your teeth, being mad, throwing your shoes at the TV, whatever it might be. And that turned into activism. He'd go to Congressman Wu's office, call him, email him, whatever it took. And he, like me and my family and a lot of people in our district, we got nowhere with him. One particular time that was the kind of tipping point was there was a town hall with Congressman Wu, and every single person there wanted to talk about impeachment. And like Joe said, our congressmen are elected to represent us, to listen to us, and to take our voices back to Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, he and Nancy Pelosi and the other Democrats have decided that things like impeachment shouldn't be on the table. There shouldn't be accountability for this war. There shouldn't be accountability for wiretapping. There shouldn't be accountability for putting ourselves into financial ruin. Torture.
That's a big one with me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Destroying our forests and our rivers and our oceans and our environment, on and on and on. And our congressmen aren't standing up, and so I think it's up to the people to say, we put you there. It's now time to put someone else there that has the common sense and courage to do what's right.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was going over there, Kevin, Mark's, he's a strong advocate of, and all the things that he supports, it sounds like a progressive wet dream. I mean, this is something that I can't think I would disagree with any of these. He's dissolving, cooperation with NAFTA. He's into fair trade, and what really impresses me here is this the universal single payer, not for profit health system, but the Department of Peace. I don't hear people talking about that. Is he being very vocal about this Department of Peace?
Oh, absolutely. That has to be, our Department of War is funded to the tunes of billions and trillions of dollars every year, and like Nancy said, it's bankrupting us. It's leading us to financial ruins, and instead of talking with Iran, instead of talking with North Korea, with Russia, whoever it might be, through a Department of Peace, we decide that it's better to take an offensive, aggressive position. Just yesterday, or maybe it's today, now we have something more going on with Iran. And how many wars at one time? First of all, we don't need any wars at one time, but a three-country war, and if we go to a war with Iran, it's just going to be a catastrophe. So a Department of Peace absolutely is vitally important.
Well, it would seem to me if we had a Department of Peace, Jimmy Carter would have to be a part of it, and then he wouldn't get slammed for trying to talk to Hamas, which is, there's a man trying to talk to people, get him talking to one another, and maybe reduce the testosterone, and he's being.
And the Department of Peace is way wider than I realized it was. When I first heard about it, I thought, oh, that sounds wonderful, and that's never going to happen. And
unfortunately.
Yeah, but I called up, but I don't believe that anymore. Now I think it is going to happen. I think it's really important it happens.
Well, thank you, Dennis Kucinich.
Yeah, well, there's in Eugene, there's somebody who faithfully holds meetings and keeps everybody informed, and I called him actually early on, maybe October or something, to meet with him, to have him tell me about it. And I was surprised to find out that it covers peace, not just in war. It goes down to domestic violence, street violence.
That's right.
And it was one of the great things. I remember when I told my sister I was going to run for office, she said to me, oh, someone's got to do something about domestic violence. And I thought, well, that's really not a government thing. And then I met with him, and I thought, it is part of our health and well-being, And so if you have something in place, some framework, instead of, again, being reactive instead of proactive, all the way up to war, if you have a framework, you have something to work with to progress that way. So it's way bigger, way more vital than I knew.
Mm-hmm. Is that part of what you're talking about now when you're out there?
I do sometimes. You know, you usually get 2 minutes. So
You can't cram a whole
so right.
minute.
So sometimes the Department of Peace shows up, and sometimes it doesn't. But I'm on record for being strongly in favor of it. In fact, the Department of Peace wrote a little letter to the Register Guard who was and listed me, and I think Fromeyer, I forget, there were a couple of us, and I was proud to be listed, and I was proud to be in favor of it.
I see. Well, Joe's not a politician. I first heard your name when you were trying to keep Blumenauer's feet to the fire, going every Thursday for how long?
We're still going.
We're still going? Yeah, right. But for how long has this been going on?
We've been in front of Blumenauer's office now for 9 months.
Every Thursday.
And matter of fact, yesterday we were kidding that maybe we're going to get a burst of responsibility out of him, because 9 months is kind of symbolic. So we've been there for 9 months. We will be there until January of 2009, until Bush leaves office. We hope he leaves before that. But if that doesn't happen, we will stay. No matter what happens in this election, it's not a separate issue. They do crisscross. However, Blumenauer's got to know that lawyers, veterans, school teachers, other people outside his office, PhDs, master's degrees, are standing in vigil and watching every week, waiting for him to say, I've had it, enough. We've all said it. 80% of the Democrats have said it. The Democratic Party of Oregon has said it. The Democratic Party of Sonoma County has said it. Blumenauer has not. He is supposed to be the progressive in the most progressive district in the nation, and he won't do it. We would cheer him. I would point my finger and say, there goes my congressman. He's going to hold them responsible. I want that so much. He won't do it. And the question is why?
Well, he certainly can't be afraid of losing his seat over it, I would think, because everybody's for it, and he's got such a war chest, and he's just so well known that it really couldn't hurt him. So he must be afraid of repercussions in D.C.
He's got to be afraid of repercussions from Pelosi, because that's the only thing that makes sense. She said it was off the table, therefore he's following suit. That is complicity. Every day our soldiers are dying. Every day Iraqis are dying. Every day there are more refugees. 4 million. 2 million in country, 2 million out of country. And it is the most disastrous genocide, maybe second to Darfur, but maybe not. It is our genocide.
Thanks to the media, we don't know.
We don't know any of this because we are so busy worrying about whether Barack Obama wears the American flag on his lapel, or what color socks he has on, or what Hillary is doing today. It's bizarre. And people are dying, and we can't stop it. And that is so sad. So sad.
You were wanting to jump in there?
Oh, yeah. One thing I can say is that I really, you run into, one of the things I ran into that I didn't quite expect, I knew there was lethargy, but I didn't know there was so much and so deep. So I hope people will realize that by speaking up and making contacts and letters, they actually do have a big voice that can make a change. And on my website, I actually had this thing called Pelosi Project, and it was to work on Pelosi, really. And on it, it just said for everybody to be contacting their own congressperson to get them to take a stand for impeachment. And if everybody actually did contact their congressperson, that would probably happen. You know, and I think people get busy and worn out and all kinds of things.
They're fatalistic about it.
Yeah, they get, fatalistic and just hope, like if we hold real still, it will go away, it'll just go away, or come January 20th, it'll go away. But really it requires everybody to, I start off with a little part too when I was running saying just lift your finger to help. It could be lift your finger, make a phone call, lift your finger and email, lift your finger and write a letter. You know, you don't have to do a whole lot if you don't have it in you. But I'm so sorry, but you can lift.
It's all right. It happens all the time.
Yeah, forgot. But you can But you can lift your finger. So if everybody will just even do that, if everybody listening just does that and contacts their own congressperson.
Sure. You know, I was looking on this, Kevin, that it says impeachment of Cheney. So, not that that's a bad idea. And Dennis Kucinich pointed the way on that. And so he's not standing up for impeaching Bush, or he's just talking about Cheney?
Absolutely
since
both.
We're talking about impeachment here, so...
Yeah, absolutely both. You really have to impeach Cheney either first or both together.
Since he's the real president.
Because, yeah, absolutely. He's in, and if he was actually named president, who knows? I don't know. That just sends shivers down my spine. But no, it's absolutely got to be both. And not just impeachment over the next 9 months. We've been calling it for the past at least 4, 5, 6 years. But really, we've got to set a precedent and hold our presidents and our congressmen and our elected leaders accountable all the time. And we've got to let them know that nobody's above the law, and that regardless of when they do something or when they get out of office, that they can be held accountable. And so I think that's one of Mark's stances too, that obviously he can't do something the next 9 months, but when he gets into office, certainly he can hold hearings and he can fight for our rights as citizens and get some accountability.
It seems to me that there was some kind of bill or something passed recently, or an executive order that absolved the president of ever being able to be taken to task for anything he did during his presidency after that.
An executive order only has the power of law while Bush is sitting in office. Just to go back to impeachment just for a moment, there's something that most people don't understand about impeachment. The only time that the president cannot use his pardon is during impeachment. That's Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution. It specifically says it. His power to pardon is absolute, except during impeachment.
When he is being impeached.
If Cheney is being impeached, Bush could not stop it. The other thing that most people don't understand, and this is going to be argued in the courts, I know it. Can they be impeached after they leave office? And I would say yes, based on this. They take pensions. They take security. They take federal money. They can lose all of those things under impeachment. We can go after them after they leave office, take that information, give it to the next U.S. attorney, and put them all in jail. We could do that.
It technically wouldn't be impeachment since they wouldn't be in office, but from the standpoint that they are getting that $200,000 a year for the rest of their lives and social Secret Service and all that.
Okay, impeachment does 3 things. First, it removes them from office. The second, they lose all of their benefits. The third is they are barred from ever holding a higher office.
Well, 2 out of 3 is not bad.
So we can go after them 2 out of 3, and they're already gone. And all that information can go to the U.S. attorneys, and they can try it. This is my great fear. If the Democrats continue to do what they're doing, Bush is going to pardon every one of the principals. Powell, Rice, all of the neocons that started this war, or the neocons can continue the occupation, because we have now morphed into an occupation. There is no war in Iraq. We have been occupying it for over 4 years. There is no army. We are killing Iraqis. That's occupying. The reason we don't use that word is because it kicks in the Geneva Convention with a whole bunch of more regulations. That's why we can't get our progressive Democrats to use the right words. We are occupying that country. We are not at war with it.
Finding people. Now, you hang around with a lot of people who are in favor of impeachment. But out in the streets, there's not very many, you know, statistically or whatever. And I think one of the reasons is that people have this idea. It's like, if it doesn't happen, why should I be for it? Why should I be in a position of being disappointed? And it's almost like waiting for a consensus, you know, where sometimes I picture it almost like dominoes would fall. The
100th monkey.
Yeah, the 100th monkey.
Yeah.
And to that one, I always want to say, but what, you know, when you take the stand personally to say you're in favor of it, what does that just do for you? One, it frees you. You know, you have a power saying what you believe, and you can influence others. And when I first started being in favor of, well, I've always been in favor of impeachment practically before they were elected, to tell you the truth. But when people would be against it, I would think, but what are we saying about ourselves by not doing it? Forget them. But what about us? If we say we're in favor of impeachment as a state, if we can get our 5 Congresspersons to go that way, then we've said that you have to. We demand accountability. It says that, you know, you have to answer to us. What does that make Oregon feel like? What sort of position does that make Oregon in, even in the, you know, in the rest of the affairs we deal with? So I am hoping that people will recognize the personal power that it brings to themselves and to the state by taking that stand. You don't have to have the guarantee the rest of the nation will, but you can make sure you take care of what you got right here and use what you have and do the most you can.
That's true. Well, to me, it sounds like it would be moving the people up into a position of power at least equal to the corporations.
Yeah.
Well, we would make a decision as a people that we are a people of laws. The greatest gift the Founding Fathers gave us was Article 2, Section 4, which is the impeachment one. Because what it says is we have no king. He is not above the law. Bush says he's the decider. That's a king. He does these signing statements. That's a king. The Democrats will not stand up and say, no, you're not. The people are. All across this land now, what I call citizens' representatives are standing up saying, right, I'm not part of the Democratic Party. I'm a Democrat, but I'm not one of the big chosen ones. I'm not one of these lawyers that are really slick, but I know right from wrong. And this is wrong. And all across the land, there are at least 50 of us now that are standing up. Just like in the 2006 election when all the vets stood up. And a lot of them got elected. We are the first. Whatever happens to us is unimportant. In 2010, there will be more and more. And finally, you will have citizens' representatives that go to Washington and say, 700,000 people in my district say stop it. I speak for them. Not for Pelosi, not for the Democratic Party. I speak for them. That's what we have to do. And if it doesn't happen in 2008, it will happen in 2010. And if it doesn't happen then, do it in 2012. Because that's what's got to happen. We got to stop thinking in terms of what's next Tuesday. Think in terms of 2010, 2012. And I'm telling you right now, if you stand up, Earl Blumenauer, if he makes it this time, will not make it in 2010. Because everybody will say, enough.
Well, we have a little video. We'll let that sink in here from Joe. Well said. We have a little video of a town hall that you put together last Sunday. And Joe, anybody put a little bit together of different people speaking. We'll go into that for a few minutes. We've been hearing what the candidates had to say. And I don't know exactly who's on this tape since I haven't had a chance to preview it. But let's hope that we get some of the just regular citizens and how they feel about some of these issues we've talked about. We'll come back in about 10 minutes and then have some time for the phone calls.
Spineless back, fitted out in chaps, a broad-brimmed hat and boots with spurs of gold. But pray don't give him armor, it's not manly, we are told.
Well, here we are again, folks. You know, one more time. And you know, one more day. We're standing here going, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. But what is happening? You know, we're faced with a situation where our leadership, the leadership of this nation, has taken us down a road that is constitutionally untenable. Okay, by breaking international laws that we're signatory to, they broke our own law as well, because our Constitution says when we sign a treaty, that's the highest law we have. That and this Constitution, and neither are changeable by any court. Except, of course, when George Bush gets out his pen and does a signing statement, or gets a pet lawyer to cook up the idea that perhaps torture might just really be an intense interrogation method.
And it may be kind of a minor point, but defense industries create fewer jobs per dollar invested than any other industry you can name. Always keep that in mind when it's spending on defense. Thank you.
And I'm also from Vancouver, Washington. And my Congress member over there is Brian Baird, who originally opposed an attack in Iraq, but has funded every bit to make lots of it. And his thesis is that we need to support our troops. I've told him and I've told the staff a number of times that supporting your troops is not sending them to the other side of the world, working class people, to kill, to murder, to maim, to be placed in harm's way, to destroy the homes and environment of other working class people on the other side of the planet, only to make the most wealthy and most powerful people in the world more wealthy and more powerful.
I have a suggestion. It's a small one, but I started finding some scraps of black fabric and wrapping them around my arm, and it occurred to me that if we all started wearing a black armband, that people would ask why, and it would give us a chance to talk about the soldiers and the civilians who are being hurt and killed in this occupation. Down to Portland State when the group called IraqBodyCount.org placed the flags in the lawn, white flags representing Iraqis, red flags representing U.S. soldiers. And I wrote a poem afterwards. I kind of wish that they had put some evidence on these flags as to the background of these people. I have a feeling there weren't too many rich people represented by those flags.
It really heartens us. I love to see all the red shirts and whatnot. and all of the progressives doing this. I want to say, though, what can we do? What can we do? I was listening to people say, we have outrage fatigue. Those of us who've been out there a long time, and some of you have just joined the movement and whatnot. One of the things that we had out here, I guess they're all gone, is this Bush bailout bribe. Now, an organization that just started in January, it is called We the People National Coalition for Impeachment, started right here in Portland. There were a small group of us. It is now national. And what we decided to do was what the Democrats did, who were as upset about doing nothing folks, and they're in the House, as we are. There were about 89 of them. They decided to band together when Nixon was at his worst. I'm not going to go through, I think most of you know who Richard Nixon is. I don't know, I see some blank faces here. But I mean, he had carpet bombed Cambodia and invaded Cambodia without telling Congress, and they didn't have the internet then. He had a private army, private police force. He was wiretapping That's one of the reasons that FISA Court came into being. One of the great cartoons that Herblock ever did was Nixon coming out of the sewer with a bucket of filth. And then came Watergate, where he was above the law. Well, Bella Abzug, one of the Democrats from New York City, decided the man she replaced was the first to file an impeachment resolution against Richard Nixon. And he had like 5 articles. That was done in 1972 in May, on the 9th. On the 10th, John Conyers picked up the baton and filed the second one. This is on May 10th, 1972. And then he thought, you know, Peter Rodino's House Judiciary Committee is not going to do anything with either of these bills. I'm going to file another one. So 11 days later, he filed another one, setting the tone for when Father Drinnen, some of you may remember from Massachusetts, filed another. And the flood started. And Bella Abzug and 89, at our last count, decided not to file one bill with 89 reps on it, all Democrats, but to file 89 different bills of impeachment. 2/3 of them were for an investigation because we get that, Cheney will leave. Believe me. 1/3 was plain vanilla impeachment. In October 73, 40 bills of impeachment were filed. Section 2, okay. Section 2, Article 3 says bribery, treason, and high crimes and misdemeanors can impeach them. We are bribery. And here it is. What you can do is, if you didn't pick up this flyer, you want to call Earl, or if you're not in District 3, you want to call your rep and say, okay, you're not complicit in Bear Stearns, and that's bribery. Impeach. Either hopper a bill, file a bill on impeachment, or join the others. Yeah. Okay.
This may be a little slightly off subject, but I noticed that 80% of the American public is against the war, and I think since 2005, a majority have been against the war. That tells me that we really don't have a democracy in this country. We've got an unresponsive government. Not only registration, but voting should be a lot easier. We shouldn't have all the shenanigans going on, especially in other states, to prevent people from voting in a democracy. Campaigns could be shortened so that we're not completely distracted for 2 years. You know, and that hurts the anti-war cause tremendously, to have nothing but this silly campaign on television and radio. So,
and I'm a Portland State student. I've been there on and off for about 5 years. And, you know, I've had to work some lousy part-time jobs and get a lot of support from my family who are retired and my friends. But I'm not here to talk about my personal problems with debt. I'm going to talk about collective debt. This war is outrageous. I enjoy my school. I love Portland State and the academic life. And there are some 20,000 students. One day of this war could put every student at my school through school for 4 years. Why stop there? End the war for 3 days. Why not University of Oregon? University of Portland.
My name's Hans Michael.
All right, that was a quick change there. We're back. It went on for some more time, but we can't take too much time out. We only have 20 minutes left of the program here. So welcome back. We're sitting here with Joe Walsh, Candy Neville. And Kevin Keene, who's here for speaking up for Mark, who's running for Wu's seat, and Candy is running up against the famous Gordon Smith. You've got some other folks. We just got some great people running this year. You know, the ones running for Gordon's seat are you and Steve Novick and the other fellow that's the Speaker of the House down there in Salem.
Markley.
Yeah, any one of you three would be a hell of a lot better than what we got.
You
But,
betcha.
what separates you from the other two?
Well, actually, it's funny, in debates and stuff, initially it'd always be there's not enough fighting going on, but we agree tremendously, which I think is part of the strength, really, for the people. And my distinction is the war. I mean, everybody cares about it, everybody is against it, and I just throw myself against it. And that's what I intend to do if I get elected. It's just the focus on it.
Well, I know the beginning of 2007, Gordon Smith came out with some kind of thing against how bad the war was, and then some folks were going down to his office every week saying, well, you know, what are you going to do about it? But he kept voting for the money to back it up, and many people were arrested. They wouldn't even allow them into the office, and the same thing's been going. You were one of those?
I was one of those that were arrested in Gordon Smith's office.
And there was a day, actually, I mean, I was thinking of running anyway. You know, would be, I ought to run. You know, I can't stand. I got to do something. I got to run. But one day, and I think it was last summer, maybe last spring, there was a picture in the paper of Gordon Smith, and then I forget the headline, but he was explaining why he voted against, along with others, extending the leave of those soldiers between, you know, deployments. And when you know, first, you know, there's a high post-traumatic stress rate. There's a high suicide rate. There's, you know, and to come up with any reason at all to deprive them of a few extra days to get their bearings to go back to that, you know, sort of hell. When I read that one, it was almost like I couldn't stand it. I mean, I just absolutely couldn't stand it, and I just thought, you're not connected enough. How could there be any excuse to vote that way at all? And so, you know, that was a big thing spur me on.
I see. I'll ask Kevin, although any of you can answer this, and then we'll open up some phones. I'm kind of ignorant about how the primaries are run. So is Mark running as a Democrat, or you just run and then they pick who runs?
He is running as a Democrat. There's 3 people on the ticket as Democrat, including Mark Felichko, Congressman Wu, and there's someone else. And it's kind of interesting, the other candidate who kind of just put his name in the hat in the ring, he came out, he was on KPOJ this week, kind of just disparaging Mark Felichko because of his stance on impeachment. And the last thing that we need is someone who wouldn't stand up and have courage.
We have plenty of those already.
Yeah, we have plenty of those. So I can't imagine someone, you know, running against an incumbent. You know, so yeah, I'm very proud that Mark's running, and I think, you know, all of the people running. That's what our country needs, and I would much rather vote for. I'd much rather vote for a citizen than someone who's connected to lobbyists and the whole industry of our government. We need to take it back to the people.
I would just like to say one thing before we go to the phones about the veterans.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought it up, Joe.
I spent 9 years in the Navy from 1962 to 1971. A very hot time to be in the Navy. Right now, and this came out last Friday, what they call in the industry Friday dump. 300,000 veterans have brain damage from this war. 300,000 veterans are under tremendous strain, suffering from stress. This war, 1/3 of the 1.4 million veterans that have gone through Iraq are now suffering terribly. Monday, it came out that the VA has been lying about the suicide rates. CBS did a special, said there were 20,000 veterans that committed suicide. 5,000 in 1 year. The VA came out and said they were lying. All their stats were wrong. 2 days later, the VA sent emails that were gotten by legal action saying they were right. They were right on. This is the cost of this war. Just think about that. 18 months to get to see a doctor. What is that? We say that we stand for vets, and all these people wear these American flags on their lapels. But what do we do with our vets? We throw them away. 300,000 brain damaged, 4,000 dead, 50,000 without arms, legs, burnt beyond recognition. Why? Because Bush is the decider, and our Democrats are so weak-kneed, they won't take them on. We will. There are citizen representatives running who will. I will chase him for the rest of his life because he is a man that has to go to prison. So we can say to the world, not in this country. We don't torture. We don't lie. We don't cheat. We don't invade other countries. We stand up and we say, not in my America. Not in my country. So you, Pelosi, you, Reid, you, Steny Hoyer, you, Emanuel, resign. Because all of you are complicit.
Complicit in war crimes.
Yes, war crimes.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go to the phones. There's a couple numbers we'll put up on the screen here, and if these folks haven't already said it, call us up and make some comments. Perhaps you want to disagree with them. I've had folks call up that disagree with us from time to time, and that I think that would be a good place to do that, because there are differences of opinion on a lot of things that we talked about, although they all seem pretty straightforward to me, specifically, especially what Joe was just saying about the impeachment. I've got my own T-shirt. I just didn't wear it tonight. Impeach both. There we go. So welcome, folks, to call. And we'll be here for about another 12 minutes or so, and looking forward to hearing your phone calls. Well, Joe, I appreciate. We'll just go into the first phone call. First call, you're on the air.
Yeah, hello. How you doing?
Hey, good. You're on the air.
Okay, here's the problem. You understand is access. Okay, now I'm going to be part of your campaign. Okay. I'm going to go down there every day. I'm going to make phone calls. I'm going to do emails. I'm going to knock on doors, and I'm going to get my neighbors together. I'm going to give my little $25, $50, maybe even $100 if I can afford it, okay? Now, I'm going to do everything I can to get you elected. Now, this guy's sitting over here in the corner. He ain't doing nothing. He's just sitting here waiting, and he writes his little $250,000 check, and you get elected. Now, once you're elected, I need to see you. I need to talk to you. As you found out for your own self, you can't get to see your representative. But the guy that wrote the $250,000 check, he can get to see you. He can go to lunch. He can do whatever he wants to do. Because, see, he now has access to you. And as far as Bush is concerned, the thing that people don't understand and must understand is the man is in power. Now, everybody knows about all the hundreds of millions. Now, count the world. Count France, Germany, everybody that was against the war. And we're going to stop it. We're going to put an end to it. Did it stop it? Because the man is not listening. And the thing that the gentleman, Mr. Walsh, me and you are real close in age. And the only reason I bring this up is before the 2000 election, how many elections did you hear of with pregnant chads or hanging chads? How many elections in our lifetime before 2000 did you hear that? You didn't hear it at all just so black box voting could get in. And I truly believe deep in my heart every word that you say. But let's get you elected, and let's make you one of 100 senators, and let you stand out there on the floor and say exactly truth to power, and the other 99 senators say, sit down and have a nice day. All you're doing is wasting your breath. Thank you for your...
All right.
Thank you.
I'll appreciate the comments. And very perceptive. Anything you want to respond there? Since he was singling you out there,
well, one of the things that I'm very aware of, if you go to the peace marches and you go to the vigils and you go to the teach-ins, and you go to all these people, one of the things that I notice is candidates show up, but political elected officials do not show up. And my question is, why does that happen? I know that I go to them. I'm a candidate. Will I go to them when I'm elected? You're damn right I will. I will stand by the unions when they strike. I will stand by the teachers and the janitors because I have and will. And just like the other day when a lady said to me on the bus, will you ride the bus if you're elected? And I looked at her and I said, you betcha I will. That's the difference. I know that people do not trust politicians. Neither do I. Their approval ratings are 10 or 15%. Stop sending the same people back and expect something else to happen. It will not happen. Blumenauer is a good guy. He's wrong. He's in a bubble. Get rid of him. If not this year, get rid of him in 2010, and you will send a message across this land, right to Washington, D.C. You will scare the hell out of them because he's supposed to be safe. Stop sending people back expecting something different to happen. That's a sign of insanity.
Exactly what I was going to say. A sign of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. It's not going to happen. I think we have another call. We'll get the next caller.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, you're on the air.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I think we should support the troops no matter what's going on. Number two, the theory about us going to war for oil, that's obviously not a right theory there, obviously, from the prices of the oil going up. And number three, if we didn't go into Iraq, we'd still have a homicidal maniac who could eclipse or surpass Hitler in his killing. So as much as I don't like us being in there, I think we did the right thing going in. And, this whole oil for war, that's baloney.
All right, well, we appreciate the comments. Candy, you want to respond?
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of room there.
Yeah. Actually, the first one I want to say is about going in there, and that is that it was a situation in history where all sights were on Iraq. I say to myself, they couldn't go buy a sandwich without somebody knowing. It was crawling with investigators. Every camera was on them. It was the most safe situation actually you could ever come up with. And when we went in, it really wasn't about trying to remove what are considered to be evil people. I mean, it was the criteria was that there were supposedly weapons of mass destruction, and they weren't found. And they were looking and looking and looking. The world was protesting against it. Other countries were begging us not to. Many citizens of the United States were begging us not to. And a great deal of it was just a mindset that for whatever reason wanted to go in and do this against the best judgment, against honesty, against humanity. It was arrogant. It was really, really, really foolish, and it was very, very heartbreaking. So for the way you describe the person, he was contained. He was contained the way an atomic bomb would be contained. He had absolutely no options to do anything at that time. And so the rushing actually was being reactive and using fear tactics. The proof's in the pudding. There have been just mountains of people have been killed and mountains of people have died, and our respect in the world has diminished. And frankly, when people have a fear of terrorism and being attacked again, we are much less secure in the United States now than we were before because our troops aren't here. A good portion of them are. And proof of that is, if you look at Katrina, we didn't have enough on hand here to rescue grandmas off of roofs. So for people who really feel worried about terrorism and stuff, the strongest stand you can do against that is actually have troops in the United States, fortify places that are insecure in some respects, and take it from there. And one thing I want to say about supporting the troops, I'm a daughter of a prisoner of war who did the Bataan Death March, and I am very strong on supporting the troops. Those troops don't want to be there. They didn't put together this nice little war to give the troops something to do. They don't want to be there. They want to come home. That's why they have to be sent back over and over, because other people don't want to be there either, and there isn't the high enlistment. Supporting the troops to me means really supporting the troops, making sure they have all the funding that they need, making sure that when they come back they have all the medical care they need, all the support they need, able to get educations, able to rest and get well, job opportunities. They need to be really supported, not just flag waved, really, really supported. Actually, for many of them, it's going to be for the rest of their life. It's going to require a lot of funding, and I'm 100% in favor of a lot of funding for the troops.
Well, that was a good response, and I invite the caller. It sounds to me like you might have been getting a lot of your information off the corporate news, CNN and places like that, or, which are quite often they're just press releases from the government. There are other sources, so I invite you to search out some of the other sources on the internet. I'm not saying that we're right and you're wrong, although I do believe we're right and you're wrong. Get out there and look around. What you were talking about came straight from Colin Powell's mouth, came straight from the mouths of the people who have been proven to be wrong. And you can keep believing that, or you can search around and maybe try to find another way of looking at things. We've got about a minute left here.
I just do want to, actually I could, to the person who just called in, I actually could hear a great deal of concern in his voice and in his heart. And the sincerity of wanting to support the troops and wanting to be supportive to his country. And I'd encourage him to do all the steps that we all ought to keep doing all the time, what you were saying, investigating different sources. But I do recognize that your concern and your care, and I appreciate it.
Right. And that's what a real candidate would do. But we're down to less than a minute. We don't really have time for everybody to give a final talk. But Kevin, you were here speaking for Mark. You did a great job. Hope folks can, I don't know if there was a website up for Mark or not, but there are ways to find out information. Candy, you're going up, hoping to take the seat away from Gordon Smith, who thoroughly deserves it. And Joe, you did great. It was good to hear from you. You inspired me, even though I already agreed with you. You inspired me.
He's empowering, isn't he?
Empowering.
You have to learn how to be more direct.
All right, it's true. Well, we got a few seconds left, so we'll just have to end it there. I don't think we're going to have a show next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and looking forward to it. Good night for now. All right.